Hi guys, so Keir Starmer, the leader of the opposition, the leader of the Labour Party, once again takes the initiative while Boris Johnson dithers and delays. Now he's going to call for a national lockdown within 24 hours, or it to be declared within 24 hours. So I want to show you this report from Sky News. Unfortunately, the audio is not the best because it was interviewed outside on a busy road and it was raining at the same time, but you should be able to at least hear Keir Starmer's responses.
Clearly out of control, and there's no good the Prime Minister hinting that further restrictions are coming to place in a week or two or three. That delay has been the source of so many problems. So I say bringing those restrictions now, national restrictions within the next 24 hours, that has to be the first step to controlling the virus. On schools, I don't want to add to the chaos that will be caused by having all schools closed tomorrow. Many will be closed. It is inevitable more schools are going to have to close, and the government needs a plan for children's learning, but also for working parents. So
I think that's important. And finally, somebody is mentioning this at the same time. So the schools, some schools are closing on Monday. Some schools are eventually going to close. And if there is a lockdown, then there needs to be a plan on how to deal with those remaining schools that are open. Unfortunately, Boris Johnson is trying to continually avoid a lockdown. Now, he avoids it for weeks, and then under pressure from SAGE, under pressure from the opposition, he goes into lockdown. He initiates a lockdown. But at that stage, it's too late. At that stage, a huge amount of damage has been done.
It is inevitable that more schools are going to close. Many will be closed tomorrow morning. But the more important thing, in a way, is the national restrictions need to come in the next 24 hours. Let's not have the Prime Minister saying, I'm going to do it, but not yet. That's the problem he's made so many times.
So you're clear on that?
So, yeah, I couldn't agree more. Boris Johnson has this approach of putting out feelers. You know, it's not just in regards to the pandemic, it's in regards to many government policies. The government are continually dealing with this pandemic in the same way they deal with any policy that they want to. First, run it past the public, see how the public react to it. If the public react positively, then they roll out the policy. If the public react negatively, they deny that it was ever a policy in the first place. But you can't deal with the pandemic in this way. Boris Johnson continually deals with the pandemic as if it's an ordinary policy. Let's send out some backbench MP who's going to talk about rumors about maybe a lockdown, leak it to the public, leak it to the media, and see how the public reacts. You can't run a government this way, especially when it comes to a pandemic. You have to be strict. You have to be clear. You have to say, this is what we're going to do. You have to roll out your plan and be clear with it. Not this half-arsed attempt at seeing if the public will react negatively. And if they do, then we wait until it's too late, until it's no longer possible to wait.
Nationwide lockdown should come in the next 24 hours.
Nationwide lockdown. The Prime Minister is hinting that that's going to happen, but he's delaying again, and we can't.
Sorry, why is Keir Starmer always ahead of the curve? And why is Boris Johnson always 2 or 3 weeks behind?
We can't afford that again. We can't allow the Prime Minister to use up the next 2 or 3 weeks and then bring in the national lockdown that is inevitable. Do it now. That's the necessary first step to get the virus back under control.
So what do you say to the Prime Minister about his viewpoint that it's important for children to be in school where possible, it's important for their mental health and well-being, it's important for parents as well? He says schools are safe, and those parents that have the option to send their children back to school tomorrow should do so.
Everybody wants children back in schools. Nobody that would argue with that. Of course, that's what we all want. It is inevitable that some schools won't be open tomorrow morning. We know that. The Prime Minister's accepted that. It's inevitable more schools will close. I don't want to call for the closure of schools tomorrow morning and add to the chaos, but we do need to recognise that it's inevitable that more schools will close, and we need a plan in place to deal with that.
And he's making perfect sense here. Yes, some schools are already set to close on Monday. Other schools are not. Asking those schools that are expected to stay open to close would create chaos. parents would not know what the hell they'd have to do, and it would be better to have a plan, at least for the national lockdown, to say, okay, for the national lockdown, we're going to implement it. We're going to eventually close schools, but at least immediately close non-essential retail.
But it can only be part of a wider strategy that has a national lockdown in place in the next 24 hours. The Prime Minister's hinting at it, but he's not doing it, and we can't afford that delay again. You
say it's inevitable more schools will close. Do you think all schools in England should close, and if so, when?
I don't know if you heard the question, but it was, you said it's inevitable more schools will close. Do you think schools should close? That's not what he's saying. He's saying schools will close. Now, should schools close? Probably later on, but first you have to take it in steps. You have to first implement a lockdown, a national lockdown. Is it possible to keep schools open? Perhaps it is, perhaps it's not. Perhaps you need to reduce the number of children in schools. Perhaps you can have classes, some online, some in class. But first, the first step has to be a national lockdown.
I'm not saying all schools should close. Nobody wants that. That should be the last resort, not the first resort. The national lockdown that's necessary has to come first. We can't have retail open in some places and schools closed. But it is inevitable, I'm afraid, now the government has lost control of the virus, that more schools will be closed in addition to those that are closed tomorrow. We can't just be blind to that. We need a plan in place to allow children to learn and working parents to have a plan of how they're going to balance that life.
So just to be clear on this, this lockdown, you're saying a nationwide lockdown, but education stays open?
Well,
where possible?
Many schools are not going to be open tomorrow. It's inevitable, I think, that more schools will be closed, and we've got to face up to that. But that should be the last resort. The first thing is the national lockdown that needs to be in place in the next 24 hours, not hinting that it's going to happen in 2 or 3 or 4 weeks' time. Do it now.
What about the damage that does to the economy, to jobs, to people's well-being? Another nationwide lockdown. What do we keep locking?
What we've learned is that the longer you delay the difficult decisions, the worse it is on the health front, the worse it is on the economic front.
And I couldn't agree more. We've seen how Boris Johnson, waiting and waiting and waiting, creates confusion in society, and it doesn't allow businesses to prepare. So if businesses are being told one day, don't worry, there will not be a lockdown, Boris Johnson is attacking the opposition for even suggesting it, and then 2 weeks later Boris Johnson says, okay, we're going into a lockdown. This creates massive disruption for the economy as well. A lockdown is also disruptive to the economy, but the longer you wait, the worse it is for the economy, because the situation becomes much more grave, which will require a much longer lockdown. Now, frankly, I wish Boris Johnson would step aside at this moment and say, look, I can't do this job. Keir Starmer, would you like to be Prime Minister for the next 6 months? Because you are capable of doing this. You are capable of showing leadership. You're capable of actually taking risks and saying, and dealing with this problem. Boris Johnson is incapable of dealing with this problem. He has demonstrated this on numerous occasions. And once again, Keir Starmer is going to ask for a lockdown. Boris Johnson is going to say no. He's going to criticise Keir Starmer for suggesting such a thing. And then in a week or two, the UK will go into a lockdown. This is how it always pans out. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot. I want to say a big thank you to all of my patrons. You ensure that this channel continues to exist. I'm eternally grateful for all of your support. If you join Patreon, you will receive instant access to our Discord server, where we have both audio and video chats. You can chat with me and other patrons, where we discuss important and non-important issues. Becoming a patron per month costs about the same as a large coffee, so why not check it out?